If you are watching this, almost everything you think you know about Iran is wrong, and it is wrong by design. There is no country, no culture, no people on earth that has been more consistently lied about. For longer, by more different empires than Persia. In 2,500 years of recorded history, 17 separate empires have set out to permanently conquer, destroy, and absorb Iran. Every single one of those empires no longer exists. Iran is still here. This is not a myth. This is not nationalist propaganda. This is a statistical anomaly completely unique in all of human history, and almost no one talks about it. Before we start, I am not Iranian. I have no dog in any modern political fight. I am just going to tell you what the actual historical record says. Once you peel away 2,500 years of stacked bias, let's begin. Part 1. Why every narrative is biased first. We have to answer the most important question that no one ever asks. Why is every single take about Persia, from every side, always biased? This is not a modern thing. This did not start in 1979. It did not start in 1953. It started in 440 BC. The first person ever to write a formal history of Persia was Herodotus. We call him the father of history. He is also the father of anti-Persian propaganda. Herodotus wrote his history 30 years after the Greco-Persian Wars. He was Greek. He was writing for a Greek audience that had lost 20% of its entire male population in that war. He was never, ever going to write a neutral account. And here is the uncomfortable fact. We have 0 surviving Persian primary sources for the Greco-Persian Wars. Not one. For the most famous war of antiquity, we have only ever heard one side of the story. For 2,500 years. That bias became the foundation of all Western historical thought. The Romans inherited it from the Greeks. The Arabs inherited it from both and added their own layer. Where Persia was the decadent pre-Islamic empire that Allah had allowed them to defeat. The Crusaders inherited all three. The European colonialists of the 19th century took all of that and built an entire ideology of Oriental despotism around it, to justify their rule. Then 1953 happened. Then 1979 happened. And now we have 45 more years of very deliberate modern geopolitical propaganda stacked on top. 7 separate consecutive layers of bias, stacked on top of each other. Over 2,500 years. No other country on earth has anything even close to this. This is why every opinion you have ever seen about Iran is biased. It is not an accident. It is the oldest continuous propaganda tradition in the world. Part 2. The scoreboard. Now let's look at the actual record. No opinions, just facts. This is every empire that tried to permanently conquer Iran, and what happened to them. 640 BC. The Assyrian Empire sacks the first Persian capital. They announce Persia has been destroyed. 30 years later, Assyria ceases to exist. 330 BC. Alexander the Great conquers the Achaemenid Empire. 12 years later, Alexander is dead. His empire disintegrates. 110 years later, Persians rule Persia again. For 700 years, Rome and Persia fought the longest war in human history. At no point in those 700 years did a Roman army ever permanently occupy even one single inch of the Iranian plateau. Rome fell, Persia remained. 651 AD, the Rashidun Caliphate conquers Persia. This is the one everyone says was the end. 180 years later, the Caliphate was effectively ruled by Persians. Farsi remained the language of the people. No other people conquered by the Caliphate ever kept their language. 1258 AD, the Mongols invade. They kill between 50 and 75% of the entire population of Iran. They destroy almost every major city. 80 years later, the Mongol Ilkhanate rulers were Shia Muslim, spoke Farsi, and called themselves Shahs of Persia. The Mongols did not conquer Persia. Persia conquered the Mongols. Timur did the exact same thing. The Ottomans tried and failed 4 times. The British occupied it for 80 years and left. The Soviets invaded in 1941 and ran away 5 years later. The United States has now spent 45 years waging economic war, proxy war, and Cold War against it. 17 empires, 17 losses, 0 permanent victories. That is not normal. That is not luck. There is a reason for this. Part 3. Why no one conquers Iran. There are 4 actual, verifiable, material reasons that Iran has never been permanently defeated. None of them are about bravery, or God, or national pride. They are hard facts. 1. Geography. The Iranian plateau is the single most defensible natural great power homeland on planet Earth. It is an almost perfectly flat table 1,500 meters above sea level, surrounded on every single side by mountains over 3,000 meters high. You can win battles on the plains outside Iran. You can capture the border cities. But once you march an army up over those mountains, every single logistical advantage you have vanishes. Every invading army in history has run out of supply exactly 6 months after crossing the Zagros Mountains. This is why Rome never even tried to invade the plateau. This is why even Genghis Khan almost turned back. 2. Cultural coherence. By 500 BC, there was already a single shared language, shared identity, shared set of stories and customs across the entire plateau. That identity has never once broken in 2,500 years. There is no other example of this anywhere. China comes close, but it has fractured into multiple states half a dozen times. The original Egyptian identity was completely erased 1,700 years ago. You can go to any remote village in Iran today, and the stories grandmothers tell their grandchildren are the exact same stories that were told in 500 BC. You can conquer all the cities. You can kill all the elites. But you cannot conquer 50,000 villages that all share the same unbroken 2,500-year-old identity. 3. The soft power paradox. Persia has lost almost half of all the major wars it has ever fought. But it has almost never lost the peace. Every single people that has ever conquered Persia has ended up becoming Persian. This is a trait completely unique to Persian culture. The Romans did not become Carthaginian. The British did not become Indian. But everyone who goes to Persia becomes Persian. For almost all of human history, Persian culture was the higher status, more sophisticated, more attractive culture of the entire region. You could rule Persia. But if you wanted to rule it well, you had to become Persian. 4. The threshold of tolerance. This is the most counterintuitive and most important one. Persia does not care who sits on the throne. It does not care if you are Greek, Arab, Mongol, Turk. It does not care if you tax them. It does not care if you loot the capital. It will sit back and it will wait. But there is one single uncrossable line. If you ever try to change the Persians, if you try to make them speak another language, worship another god, abandon their customs, become something else, the entire country will explode. Every single invader in history made this exact same mistake. They ruled peacefully for 10 or 20 years, got overconfident, and decided they would reform the Persians. And every single one of them was destroyed shortly after. Now, let me be very clear about one thing. This is not a glorification. Persia was an empire. It committed atrocities. It did terrible things. It is not a perfect country. It has a government right now that a lot of people, including a lot of Iranians, hate, but none of that changes the fundamental historical fact that this is the single most enduring political and cultural entity in the entire history of the human species. The next time you see someone on the news talking about Iran as some new rogue threat, some upstart, backwards country that appeared out of nowhere in 1979, remember this? Every single person, every single king, every single emperor, every single general who has ever said that exact same thing. For 2,500 years, is now gone, and Iran is still here. None of this means that will be true forever. But it does mean that anyone who makes plans that assume Iran will just go away has not read the history book.